Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. We're going to have a little fun tonight with Dr. Joshua Bowen. But before we do, I want to go ahead and plug a few things, ladies and gentlemen, if that's okay with you. And I think it's important that you guys take a peek over here at their website, digitalhammurabi.com. You guys, this pops up because they have a show coming up. You guys start subscribing and check out the channel. This is an actual photograph of his wife, in case you're wondering. She looks exactly like this. And where are you at? Let's see. Oop, there is one of the children.
I didn't realize it. That's her Twitter feed. Her Twitter feed comes up and she tweets.
She's got to have a bot. Oh, look, we're already on there. Look at the thumbnail.
Oh, I guess my Twitter feed shows up as well.
It's like an automatic. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, go check them out at their website. And if you're wondering what we're going to discuss, we're going to talk about the Old Testament, but this is the book. And for those of you who haven't caught up to speed, Dr. Josh, tell them who does the audiobook. Who's reading?
The ever impressive, godlike, I dare say, Seth Andrews.
Seth Andrews is reading. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, his voice is fantastic. He worked at a news, wasn't it?
You know, if you've shared the audio, you can click that thing that says audio sample.
Now back to our conversation about context.
You can't hear that because it's not close. Hold on.
Let's take 1 Samuel 15. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard the following.
Dude, he's got a voice. It's amazing. I must admit, I've been listening to it while I drive to you. Also, I've got the Patreon, ladies and gentlemen. You guys should check out the Patreon. I mean, this is how I do what I do. It's taking forever to load, but there's hundreds of videos. I'm not exaggerating. I do this every time because
let me, if I could, let me just sort of take over for a second.
Okay. Hold on, let me do this. Before you do that, I got to drag you right here. And then I got to do this. Okay.
Yeah. So he didn't know that I was going to do this. But it's hard to explain, I think, how hard Derek works at what he's doing. And Derek, I'm sorry. I guess you probably don't mind that I'm bragging about you, but he came.
Plugs are always welcome, you know.
He drove all the way up here. From where he's at. Was it 6 hours, 7 hours?
6. Yeah.
And brought his recording equipment, has his lapel mics, equipment that he's purchased, and he's doing it to make these. I'd say it's innovative, right? I don't know of anybody else that's doing this. I mean, not that I know everybody on YouTube, but doing these interviews with scholars in person and me. So, I would highly recommend that you go and become a patron, not just because you get all these early release videos with Joel Baden and John Collins and Elaine Pagels, or you get to hear Megan yelling at our 3-year-old, any of these things. But because this is what Derek does for a living, right? So jump in there and support him. Throw him a couple bucks each month, because it's important to keep him going.
Well, dude, you didn't have to do that, of course.
Oh, yes, I did.
I do appreciate the love. That's the Patreon. Not everything's fully updated. I've currently today edited 11 videos, and I've got 7 more going. We ended up, let me pull us back onto the screen here real quick.
I want you to know that I was gonna say something about. No, I won't even. I was gonna make a parody about something that was recently on Twitter.
About me?
No, but what's his name? Doug did a parody.
Oh my god!
but I didn't weigh in.
You talking about his friend Myron?
Yeah, I try to stay out of these things.
I get it. I don't blame you. But yeah, no, there's no way to get around how grotesque that post was. When you read it, I don't care who you are. The Bible can be interpreted 1,000 ways, okay? That post, I'm not sure it can be interpreted more than one way. I mean,
what sucks about it is, like, I mean, I know we're not mentioning people's names or anything. I agree. I read it and went, ugh. But the thing is, like, try to give people the benefit of the doubt. It's like, all right, maybe you didn't mean that.
There's
Maybe
20
this is
different
coming.
ways he could have written it.
Oh my God.
Even in light of that. So yes, the way he wrote it, it's like he capitalized on the way he wrote it. It just showed way too much. You couldn't convince me that his intentions weren't something obviously monetary completely. It's hard to read.
I'm glad that he took it down. I'm glad that he took it down.
I am too, but I mean,
and just so it's clear, Derek didn't post anything like that. You see, so reward him, people.
If you pass away, Dr. Josh, I'm going to write this huge.
Yes, I give you permission.
I'm just kidding. That won't be happening, ladies and gentlemen, because I will bust my ass, honestly, to try and keep this thing going. I always tell people, and this will end on this note, for the Patreon members that help, you guys get to ask the questions. Next Friday, not this Friday, next Friday, I'm driving back to Dr. Josh's, and I'm interviewing with him again for like a whole 24-hour period where we're going to get very little sleep. He already gets very little sleep with those twins of his, but your wonderful wife, Megan, covered for you and helped you. And then we got to interview her. So giving them the skinny, I had 24 videos. 7 of the videos were corrupted.
I broke his camera. Look, let's just be real about what happened.
So we were talking about Greek mythology, and then his true Medusa nature came out. It totally almost killed me. I'm glad I was hiding behind the camera. In case you're wondering, Medusa cannot turn you to stone if you're looking through a lens that's looking at Medusa. But what can I do? Your wife came on, fixed all the problems. It was much better, But seriously, yeah, I've got 7 of the videos that I recorded. Some were 20, 30 minutes long, corrupted, which really was a disappointment. So I contacted you, and I'll be driving next Friday. So if you have questions and you're a Patreon member, I'd be happy to get your question recorded on top quality camera gear.
And that's how it works, folks. Like the first 6 or 7 videos, he was like, all right, started the video and said, all right, I've got a question from my Patreon member.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a 20 or 30 minute video. So,
well, hopefully they have those up tomorrow, because I'm just going to work on the rest of them. Let me show them a sneak peek, and then we'll get into the Old Testament and what yearbook. Look, we did a show on this, but I had not read the book yet. And I haven't completed it, but I've got enough under my belt to go, oh, crap. This is definitely necessary. There's a lot of ancient Near Eastern stuff. How do you paint that picture? If someone's not even aware of this, we'll get into that in just a second. I want to show everybody real quick the sneak peek of the video that I just edited with you. All right, hold on one second. It's got ads on it too, of course. You got to, I get like 0.1 of a penny, for every ad. There we go. Okay. Now, sharing screen, you guys are going to see some sneak peek. This is not anywhere. This is right here. Dr. Bowen loved it earlier too. So he's like, oh, snap. Oh, snap. All right, here we go. Going full screen. All right, here's a sneak peek. Ladies and gentlemen, get the book Dr. Joshua Bowen wrote, The Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament. It is extremely full of knowledge and information for anyone, as well as join the Patreon. There's hundreds of videos. Look at that background, that sexy background, baby. Internet, so you can ask questions.
Yeah, and I mean, this guy thinks you should become a Patreon member. So
there's more than one of us. You can also personal message me, and you help the community grow. Thanks a lot. And of course, let me skip ahead of this to show you guys how sexy it is. All right, here we go. Dr. Joshua Bowen. Welcome to MythVision podcast in person. Finally. Yeah. No babies going into labor.
Hopefully there aren't babies going into labor.
True. I hope me and you aren't having kids like that. So you never know, right? And this is a whole long drawn out the earth. Is the earth flat in the Bible? Blah, blah, blah. Of course, but we go into a lot of information there. And I'm going to stop sharing from there. Dr. Josh, let's get this thing started. So I just having fun, letting everybody know. I wanted everyone to know I had 24 videos. Now I only have 18. One of them was a promo that was only like 15 seconds. Thankfully, there wasn't a full video.
And it was just me. So, I mean, it's no loss there.
Yeah. Oh, look, we got Dr. Kip in the audience. Tomorrow, I'm going to go live with him on the Dead Sea Scrolls. So looking forward to that. I'm not sure that 4K is Dr. Josh's friend. Set in stone, man. That's permanent. So love you guys. I got.
Thanks for putting it up on the screen. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, seriously. I want to make sure that everyone who watches the video can see this.
Now, I'm sorry. Now Kip Davis has to become a Patreon member.
Has to.
That's it.
Everybody's been initiated, and you can't turn away. Once patronized, always patronized. You have to join at this point. You cannot undo what you have received here. It's just like Baptist theology. We've got a lot of people in the chat, man. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to get started. Stuart Ceases, love MythVision. Thanks, Derek and Dr. Josh. Thank you, Stuart. I appreciate the super chat. Dr. Josh, I have to ask, we didn't really talk about this much. You mentioned it briefly. Why did you write this book? Like, was this to defend and kind of come in and say, oftentimes atheists are accused of not knowing? Is that really the whole reason when we discussed that last time?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the that was the initial motivation, but I suppose it's bigger than that in the sense that I'm trying to provide the atheist community and really anybody that reads the book that's interested in the Old Testament and the ancient Near East this broad background to understanding how the Hebrew Bible works. And some of these more hot button issues that show up in it. So like you were talking about how you listened to the first, I think, 2 or 3 chapters on your way up. And those 3 chapters are designed to give the listener, the reader, a very broad, but hopefully a broad background that they can sort of walk away from the book and say, I understand what the narrative of the Old Testament is. I understand the history of the ancient Near East. I understand how archaeology works and how biblical archaeology works and how it's developed. but not only do they understand that broadly, but there's a resource there. It's a reference. It's a reference material. There's some reference material that they can go back to, a year from now when somebody says, oh, the Amarna period and the Exodus from Egypt and the second half of the second millennium fits perfectly with the Exodus and the Conquest. And they can go, does it though? Yeah. Seem to recall that that's not true. Let me go back and read Josh's book and not only see what he says about it, but see who he's footnoted, see who he's referenced. Oh, let me go pick up Mark Van der Meerop's book. Let me go read, Ronald Hendel about this or whatever. Yeah. So that's how it's designed. It's designed specifically for the atheist community to be able to, it's geared toward to be able to arm them to have better conversations with specifically apologists and fundamentalist Christians. But I hope that it will benefit anybody, that picks it up and wants to understand the Hebrew Bible and the ancient Near East.
I know for a fact it will. Even listening to it, what I loved is the historical outline you draw in the second major chapter, talking about the ancient Near Eastern context from the Assyrians going down into the Babylonians and just talking about this period from kings and what was going on. Like, you give a lot of history, and the comparison that is made to the Bible in our series of videos that we did, comparing a lot of the biblical stuff and then going, you're going to tell me the Bible literally stands separate and completely, I guess you say a bubble separated from the rest of the world? No, that's not what scholarship has found. So real quick, we got a super chat, and thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. TMJ Health, thank you for that big super chat. Were the Canaanites Israelites? And we recently did this, Dr. Baden, he liked to nail that one. I was like, yeah. But Egyptians, were they black people? If not, now skin color, of course. This is something that I hear a lot today. People always mention these things. If not, all which were black people. So I think what he's trying to say is, if the Egyptians weren't black people,
right,
then where were they located and who were black people in the ancient world?
I'm not the right person to ask this question, and partly because I think it requires a very specific skill set in the ancient Near East and ancient Near Eastern studies. So I suspect that some of this would be anthropological, although I don't know that. I suspect that there are, genetic studies that could be done. I know that recently, I can't remember her name. Mary Ellen Buck wrote in her book. She cited several recent scientific genetic studies that were done, papers that were done or produced on looking at the Canaanites and the relationship of skeletal remains that were found and compared. But I mean, as far as skin color, I mean, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm probably not. Well, I'm absolutely not the person to give any kind of a qualified opinion on that. So sorry, I feel like I've let down that super chat.
It's okay. No, I think that's something you do though, and I think anyone who asks these questions of you, it's respectful not to assume you know, and that's a scholarly position to take when you don't know. So you said you recommend who should they look into maybe having that?
Yeah, I mean the only person that I can think of that's written on that recently, and again, it's not strictly about skin color. It's just looking at are there genetic connections between skeletal remains from I think the 3rd millennium down into maybe even the 1st millennium BCE in the Canaanite region to show a genetic connection between the people that were in that area over that span of time.
Right.
But I don't know that that's going to speak to the question that they have.
I think it's an interesting question. I think it's kind of anachronistic in a way.
Yeah. I mean, you can look. So one of the things that does sort of pop to mind for me is there are some. I think they're tomb paintings, but some pictures, some drawings that we have in inscriptional material or alongside inscriptional material that show Asiatics and I think maybe Nubians and Egyptians, and I can't remember, but side by side. I don't know. I don't remember what the preservation of the colors are or how indicative they are of reality, what Egyptologists would say about that study, that sort of thing. But that might be something to look into.
I mean, I do agree with Flash Gordon. He says that they're all tanned for sure. I think it'd be hard to find people in the Middle East that weren't, just don't see it happening. But who knows? I don't have a camera. Brute Facts Podcast wanting to say what's up to our boy here. What up, MythVision and Dr. Josh, 2 of my favorite atheists, both Christian approved. Oh,
thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Eddie.
Appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Dr. Josh, we talked about genocide. Oh man, I went from a Christian approved to genocide in the Old Testament like that. Like that. I hope I'm still approved. There's some tough stuff in the Old Testament. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is slavery was discussed. Your book here, did the Old Testament endorse slavery? I think it's kind of an interesting question that you titled this, because this book does touch on it, but you could have titled it, Does the God of the Old Testament endorse slavery? And did you think about titling it that?
I was very picky about how I did it, as I am with all the books, the titles of the books. What I wanted to make sure that I relayed in the question was, I mean, I guess thinking about it, did the God of the Old Testament, I just feel like that would need to be nuanced. Because I'd want to say like, as the writers, I guess that could have worked.
Either way, I mean, I just figure like, even like, I guess you could call them liberal Christians from a lot of fundamentalists. They'll say, well, the liberal Christians will go, yeah, the Old Testament. Yeah. But did God, and it depends on the kind of Christian you're dealing with, that might say, well, God wasn't okay with it. He allowed it, but he wasn't okay with it. And then down the road, you notice he's trying to change that with Christianity and such. But
maybe that's why, now that I think about it, maybe that's why I did it, because I wanted to make sure that the answer could unequivocally be yes, because the apologetic argument, all I'm trying to do in the book is say, here's the data, right? It's absolutely clear in the Hebrew Bible, in the Old Testament, that the law collections, that are there, are endorsing the practice of both debt and chattel slavery. However, there is an apologetic argument that I deal with in the new book, where it does exactly what you're describing, right? That God didn't endorse it. What he did is allow it or regulate it. He permitted it, not knowing that he didn't like it. And so I feel like it makes it more difficult for the reader to walk away and say unequivocally yes. Because I don't know how it's difficult to like strictly disprove that apologetic, right? I think you can, and I do in the book, offer what I consider to be counter arguments to it, but I don't think that they're in any way, like a proof, right? Or absolutely, absolutely necessary that would be the conclusion. So
there's a lot in this book that I did not even know. And I'm going to tell you like this, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I got to brag for a second here. I've read the damn book. Okay. I say book as in the whole totality of the book, the Bible. In our form, we have it. King James, I read the King James version when I was in high school. And I got to admit that there were times I struggled when I would like overindulge and drinking or smoking and doing dumb stuff. And then I'd get back on the straight and narrow and I'd read my Bible. Well, I read the whole thing. And I mean, I was there. I was like, I like it literally became a visual where I could see the golden calf. I was climbing the rocks with Moses on the mountain. I was, you name it. I was really
You were
there.
killing the Amalekites. You were there.
I was there when Lot laid with his two daughters.
Whoa, buddy.
Trying to get to the good stuff. But anyway, I'm just being stupid. So ridiculous. You and me we always have too much fun, man. You always mess me up. I'm trying to get to a point. You always do this to me, Dr. Josh. Back to the good stuff. You screwed me up. Where was that? You cracked me up. Hold on. What was I going to say? You jacked me up here.
Yeah, so you were there. You've read the Bible. You were.
Yeah. There's stuff you say. There's stuff. This is the point. I go into my as what's his name? Pine Creek. Doug says bloviation. I go on and on, right? But the point is, there's things I had never realized that were in the text that you talk about in the Bible. The way you narrate it, and you do a quick overview that really gets into the story. And stuff like after the golden calf, Aaron makes an excuse to Moses and says, "Look, I threw the gold into the fire, and a golden calf popped out."
What happened?
What happened? Then, after they get judged somewhat, because he's not over with the judgment, they grind it into powder, and everybody has to drink the golden calf. What's that all about? Then. I mean, I'm saying things that were like, I didn't know what the hell this was. Then after that, there's like a command to go and kill, like, if I'm not mistaken, family members and people, not just family, but like people that are part of these people that are out here in the wilderness.
Their brethren. Yeah.
Go and actually kill them. Like, I never knew that part. I knew about throwing the tablets down and the earth swallowed them. And okay, there was no like human go kill a human type thing. But then there was a command for this. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that stuff that you talk about in the book that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting when Seth said it actually in the podcast that he released today. Where he read, if you haven't heard it, go listen to Seth Andrews, The Thinking Atheist. he reads almost all of chapter 4 of the book, which is great. I listened to it today, even though I wrote it. It's so nice to hear him read it. And one of the things that he said was, you don't realize it's so difficult to get through all the sort of slow going parts. You get to all these chapters about how the tabernacle's formed, or all these chapters in the Pentateuch about the different areas, the different parts of the sacrificial system.
So-and-so begat so-and-so.
Yes. And what I was trying to do was not say that those things are unimportant, but to try to say, look, I need you to know the narrative flow. I need you to know who the characters are and what the movements are. And so when you get to those, like grouping of chapters in Exodus, the end of Exodus, it's like, okay, look, this is all about this. And that's like 9 chapters. That's all we're going to say about it. It's just about this. Then the next thing, the next action that takes place in the story is X. And when you hear it like that, just straight through the storyline, I think it solidifies.
Mm-hmm.
It can much more indelibly impress itself upon you, so that you understand. Oh, I get it. Okay, so this happened after this. That's the way the narrative is setting this up. So hopefully that's how it came across.
It really painted. There was a lot of questions I wrote down, and I had to send them to you in audio because I'm sitting here driving and I'm not writing down. I'm like, okay, Dr. Josh, this is what you said. This is something we should do a recording on. And I'm sitting here coming up with recording ideas based on the book to put on high definition. Some of the stuff I'd never heard of that I thought, we got to discuss this. Because if I read the Bible, like really digging into it, believing in it, I thought about it at the time I had ran through the Bible like that. I haven't read it Genesis to Revelation in the way I did as a Christian. But I thought, if I go back, I'll probably see things like I've never seen them before. And a lot of that is like, whoa, I used to go right over the genocidal passages like, and God killed the bad guys. And who are the bad guys? Some of your own family members in the tribe. Yeah. Even when I read Lot and his daughters, I never, as a believer, second guessed that whole thing and tried to look at it from our point of view in modern society. I read it saying Lot had to keep the line going.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. You got it, God. You know what I mean? I never really thought about it like that.
See, this is really, so let's go big picture for a second.
Okay.
Because this is really where I want this whole discussion, not this one between me and you, but this one between, atheists and Christian apologists. Where I want the conversation to ultimately go is for, if I'm, being transparent here, which I feel like I am, I want the apologist to go, okay, you know what? Good point. There is slavery. Yeah, you know what? That thing in Ezekiel 26, that is a problem, right? It's something that we have to wrestle with. I want us all to get to the point where, I hate to say this, but we're all just going, yeah, what the consensus of scholars say about this, both evangelical and liberal alike, yeah, that's where we need to start, right? Once you do that, as a Christian apologist, once you're not trying to defend this weird version of inerrancy and inspiration, once you're not trying to say there are no contradictions and I'm going to find a way to show you there are no contradictions, it frees you up in the same way that an atheist is freed up when they're not trying to take the Old Testament text and completely vilify it in every conceivable way that they can find it. Now, let me be clear. I think when atheists come to the Old Testament, when they come to the Hebrew Bible, they're coming at it trying to show people that believe in this version of inerrancy and inspiration and this sort of literalistic, sort of slavishly literalistic approach to the Bible. Hey, if you read it this way and you interpret it this way, its logical conclusion is this, and that's bad. Like, all right, if we're not trying to get like overarching principles that we're actually getting out of the text because of where we are in society today, or if we're just trying to, if you're coming at it literally, man, God drowns innocent babies. That's what the story says. Now, is that what the story is thinking? Is that the point of the text?
Can I say something?
Yeah,
Maybe
go
not
ahead.
innocent babies, maybe wicked babies. It's the pictures. Everybody is kind of wicked, and the heart of man is desperately wicked. I don't know if they consider these infants wicked or not, but the point is, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that there's, I don't think that 1 Samuel 15, I don't think the writer has anything in mind about the righteousness or unrighteousness of the babies,
Oh, I
the
see.
infants.
Yeah,
I don't think that's that's not in the mind of the writer at all.
right.
It's saying these are impure. This group of people is God's at cosmic war with the Amalekites, and in order to maintain purity, in order to, for God to be vindicated, to have his ultimate victory, every one of them has to go. Right? That's how harem works. So I don't think it's a question of, like, the text isn't wrestling with, okay, now what exactly did these babies do to that's not a question. However, if you're interpreting the text that way, this sort of slavishly literalistic approach, and like somebody like Brute Facts, Eddie, like, I think he would agree with me on this. Like Eddie's not coming to the text with that slavishly literalist, view of the text. And so he's starting on, I think, at the same footing that I'm starting on, that you and I are starting on, which is great. That's where the conversation needs to go, because once you get there, then I'll shut up. But once the apologist isn't fighting tooth and nail to keep this view of inerrancy, and once the atheist isn't fighting tooth and nail to demonize every aspect of the Bible, everybody can take a step back and go, my God, if you understand it as an ancient text, this is beautiful. This is beautiful literature. Because if you step back from the Neo-Assyrian royal inscriptions and you're not reading them trying to, like, justify the moral actions of the Neo-Assyrian king, you're just reading it as literature, understanding its propagandistic nature, boy, you can really appreciate it. Say, wow, this is really beautiful. The Epic of Gilgamesh is beautiful.
Right.
So
that's the problem, though, is the application.
Yeah.
Assuming this narrative applies to today. I mean, sure, we could find things in Neo-Assyrian literature that'll apply to us today that we say is relevant, but there's a lot that you wouldn't. And
yeah, let's give them an example, right? So the Epic of Gilgamesh, for those that are, know what the Epic of Gilgamesh is, this narrative that is this beautiful, it pulls from older Sumerian stories. It pulls from older Akkadian, the older Akkadian epic, and it reworks Sinlaki Unini, the guy that edited this thing together, purportedly. Like, what he's doing is brilliant. It's a brilliant piece of work. The literary inclusio that starts and ends the poem allows it to be sort of this, like, cyclical poem, right? The way that it starts is the way that it ends, and it's meant to be that way. But if you understand that, and you can appreciate it for its literary genius, really, then if you're coming at it from another direction where you're saying, okay, I worship Enki and Enlil,
this
and
guy must be like no stain, he's got to be perfect, and you have a particular perception about the text and this.
Yeah, like, I worship Inanna, right? Or I worship Ishtar. Well, then somebody says to you, well, God, look how capricious she, man, she goes and she gets all pissed because Gilgamesh rejects her proposal of marriage. So she goes and gets this heavenly bull, and that bull, can you believe it? She unleashes the bull on the city of Uruk. All these people could be, crushed and die. And what kind of a god? What kind of a god could Ishtar be to unleash this beast on these innocent people? And if we're apologists, we're going, now, wait a second. Now, listen, Ishtar's ways are not our ways. Ishtar is higher than the heavens, right? And we can't place ourselves in Ishtar's position. She had morally justified reasons to unleash the bull of heaven, right? Well, then people that are arguing with us are going to be like, are you carry that forward? That's so stupid, right? Now everybody's fighting. if everybody just steps back and says, yeah, okay, we have to look at this text differently, well, then, man, you can step back and you could, damn, man, there's some really important lessons here in the Epic of Gilgamesh.
You're pointing out the problem. The problem is the atheists are combating a horrible view that has been developed about how to conceive of the God and the Old Testament, and then they're still applied today. It's still applying today. So there's stuff we obviously wouldn't go into, but real quick, we've got a super chat here. Endorse says, what % of the Old Testament, and thank you for the super chat. I'm sorry, it's been a while. We're having fun. So when we have fun, time flies. What percentage of the Old Testament would you say we have enough evidence to believe it's true as described? What's an example of an undisputed Old Testament story? Woo-hoo.
So I think sort of the rule of thumb, I couldn't give you a percentage. But I think sort of the rule of thumb is, for the most part, when you think about the story as it's laid out chronologically, the later you get, the closer you get to the Neo-Assyrian period, the Neo-Babylonian period. In other words, as you move into the 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th centuries, the more reliable the text is. When you get earlier, like you start moving back into, past David. Let's get past David, because I do think there's I think there's a lot of Davidic material that's obviously, subject. It's formed as an apology to defend David, and it turns the story, it spins it. There's no question. But I think, like, somebody like Joel Baden would argue in his book, that there's good contemporary historical material that was utilized to put together the Davidic story. But let's get back, let's go back to like the Exodus and the Conquest. Not reliable, right? You go back further to the patriarchs, right? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Go back to the primeval history. No, those are not things that are reliable. So I think that, one end of the spectrum be something like the primeval history. No, not reliable from a historical standpoint. Right. As you start to move forward, you get to the Exodus, sort of that midpoint there in the story. I think that there probably is, or are, historical kernels that stand behind. Like, I think I probably agree with Ronald Hendel, and of course, even though that he and William Deaver don't agree on all these aspects. I mean, I think everybody, the majority of scholars seem to hold this position that there are historical kernels. There's some historical reality that stands behind the tradition, behind the stories as they developed and then were ultimately coalesced together. Are they the same traditions? No. You have, I think, I talk about this in the next book. But like Stephen Russell has this book out where I think he makes a pretty decent case for arguing for like a Cisjordan, a Northern Israel tradition that varies slightly from the Transjordan tradition, that both of them vary from, the Southern, tradition that was in Judah, and so those stories then ultimately sort of get amalgamated together and bring us the canonical form. But, so that's how I would see that. So when you start getting into like the divided monarchy, of course, get into the fall of Samaria in 722. I think we can talk about that, the fall of Samaria in 722, right? I think we can talk about the 8th century prophets. I think we can talk about Ezekiel and the fall of Jerusalem in 586. I think we can talk about the return after the Babylonian exile. Like, I think these are all realities. Does that mean that all of the aspects, particularly the supernatural ones that go into each of these stories? No, of course not. But
and that's where I totally agree with you. And I was trying to get that with Dr. Price takes a different position. I think he takes a staunch minimalist approach. And I think I don't know if he thinks if there's anything, maybe very little historical reliability. Whereas I'm in a different of opinion. And I think there is, as you say, later on, more things that start to draw actual history there, even if they are either politicized from the Southern Kingdom's authors that are writing these things, or even Northern narratives, whatever it might be, and enhanced, kind of to paint positive or negative lights on whatever the circumstances. So that might be exaggerated or not actually historically reliable for the facts, but there's still historical verisimilitude, I would say, to those things. And that's where I definitely agree with you. No percentage. Thanks for that super chat. Brute Facts Podcast. He's Dr. Josh, you're an idiot, and I want to know what? I'm just kidding. He says,
sorry, I got a really important text just now, like something that I need to respond to. If it looks like I'm looking down, it's a really important text.
do you want to handle that? And I can read this, or
I can. Go ahead. You can read it.
Okay. MythVision podcast question. Dr. Josh, what do you think about the wartime hyperbole explanation? Just purchased the hard topic.
Awesome.
So do you want to read that, and you want me to take a second to the side while you respond? And he's so focused, and it's all good.
I cannot do.
He can't do two. He's a guy. What do you expect? Don't worry. I got me on the screen right now.
Okay,
he's going to get your question. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, everybody.
No. Wartime hyperbole explanation?
Yeah. So
the book, by the way, so you got to take it
awesome.
easy on him. You got to take it easy on him.
Thank you, Eddie. No, I love Eddie. Eddie's awesome. Okay. So yes. So I'll give you what John Collins said, because I think I agree with John Collins' position on this. Well, let me tell you what Eddie's talking about. So if people don't know, there in 1991, I think Lawson Younger built upon or applied a methodology that Mario Liverani had. I think he's the one that came up with it, looking at ancient Near Eastern, particularly royal inscriptions. You know, these texts that kings would have written about things that they did, be they building things or, you know, doing great things for the country or going to war. Often those are, you know, different things that are talked about. Well, in the wartime or in the war royal inscriptions, they often got, as time went by, they got quite lengthy. And what they would do is the king would talk about, I went and absolutely destroyed such and such nation, and I took captive 500,000, and I, you know, whatever, you know, utilized seemingly these round numbers, these big numbers, and they would use them about people, about captives, about plunder, about cities that were destroyed. And there was actually a book written about this topic, how numbers are used in Assyrian royal inscriptions. I think it was in the 90s. But I don't remember the title of it or the author because I'm terrible. But it's in the Neo-Assyrian Cuneiform SAACT. I can't remember anyway, it doesn't matter. State Archives of Assyria is what it's called. Right. So the question became very quickly, well, how much can we trust these numbers? Like, whoa, 100,000 people. Like, man, what? So I think Liverani and, you know, others like him would say, as I think most of us would, looking at this, they just did it, you know, much with greater precision. No, these are exaggerated numbers. They're part of a Near Eastern war rhetoric, right? Now, that doesn't mean, so that means that when it says 100,000 people, 200,000 people, we have to be skeptical of that number.
Right.
We got to be skeptical of that number. Okay. Lawson Younger, in his dissertation, which was later published in the JSOT series, took up this idea and applied it to the biblical text, particularly Joshua 9 through 12. And basically is saying, okay, can we or should we distrust because of these claims in this section of the book of Joshua that talk about conquest? Should we distrust the entirety of the narrative just because it says, I absolutely wiped out all of these people because they show up later in the book of Judges? right? It says here that he completely wiped out city X, but then the people of city X show up in the book of Judges. So does that mean that it's totally false? We throw away this story altogether? And his conclusion is no. He's arguing that this is a type of Near Eastern war rhetoric. And when it says it completely wiped out, it's like when Merneptah said in 1207 in the Merneptah Stela, I fought Israel. I can't remember how it's worded exactly, but his seed is no more.
Right.
Right. Well, obviously, I mean, like demonstrably that was false. So I agree. This is, in a lot of places, I think this type of exaggeration, this bolstering of numbers, and this sort of exaggerated language shows up. I don't think there's any question about that. The problem that I have is when Christian apologists then use that as sort of a get out of jail free card
on everything. Yeah.
And it goes sort of something like this. The atheist will say, how can you serve a God that would call for the complete annihilation of the Canaanites? And the Christian apologist who's read Paul Copan's book, who's utilizing Lawson Younger's study, who's utilizing Mario Liverani's work, says, well, now this is just exaggeration.
Can you do that in Kent Hovind's voice while you do
Well,
it?
now let me tell you something there. If you read through Paul Copan's book, one of the first things that you'll see is that this is just exaggeration, okay? It's almost as if their speech evolved, okay? Now, I'm here to help. So,
okay, good. Thank you. I got my dose.
So the problem is they'll say it's exaggeration, therefore, and they really won't move on past the therefore. What they'll just say is, well, God didn't command that everybody be killed. This is just exaggeration. Sometimes they'll move on and they'll say, so it's sort of like when, in the football game, it says we really slaughtered the Steelers in that game. Well, one of these things is not like the other, right? The Neo-Assyrian king, when he says, I killed 100,000 people, doesn't mean, oh, no, I mean, I just went out there and we arm wrestled a little bit, right? Yeah, we kicked the soccer ball around and I scored on them. Well, that's not what he's saying. And the way that John Collins put it, which I think is just brilliant, he said, they killed a lot of people and they claimed to kill more. They killed a lot of people and they claim to kill more, right? And that's what you need to remember in these. This is what you have to remember in these discussions. So when it says, for example, that I attacked to Israel and his seed is no more, he's not lying that he fought against Israel. Merneptah says he's not making that shit up, right? Mm-hmm. What he's saying is that we attacked them, we fought them, whatever, we killed a bunch of them, we really put the hurt on them, whatever. But I'm claiming that I've done more than what I did, right? It doesn't mean that there was no battle. It doesn't mean they didn't go in there and kill a bunch of people. It just means they killed a bunch and they claim to have killed more. And you have to sort of take this on a case-by-case basis is the other thing. That you have to remember. So like last thing they'll say about this, they'll also try to apply this like a kid with a hammer, right? Everything becomes a nail to a kid with a hammer. So when they get the hammer of war rhetoric in their hand, hyperbole in their hand, well then anywhere that there's a troubling passage, bam, that's hyperbole, bam, that's hyperbole, bam, that's hyperbole. So we had a debate with Matt Dillahunty and I had a debate with Stuart and Cliff Conneckley. I think it was that debate. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was Skylar. And I had the debate. And they brought this up. It was Skylar because he brought up 1 Samuel 15 with the Amalekites. And it says, kill everybody, men, women, children, infants, babies, everything. And he said, well, this is hyperbole. This is war rhetoric. And the reason they say this is because later on at the end of 1 Samuel, the Amalekites show back up. David has to fight against them.
Yeah.
Well,
So
this
if they're
fits.
completely killed, then why is David having to fight him again?
Right. So two things to say. Number one, the book of First Samuel in particular is edited pretty heavily when it comes to Saul. But assuming let's just take the canonical form at face value. Listen to what John Collins said. They killed a bunch and claimed to kill more. Right. So even with that understanding, which I don't think actually applies here, but even with that understanding at a minimum, it very easily explains why it is this, because that's what the rhetoric is. We killed a bunch of them and we claim to kill more of them. This is the rhetoric. But it's even more important to understand that the literary context of 1 Samuel 15, it absolutely, and I won't go into any more detail, but it absolutely hinges upon Saul killing everyone. The whole narrative hinges on it. In other words, in that narrative of 1 Samuel 15, if Saul doesn't kill everybody, Saul fails.
We also did a recording in person in high definition.
That's right.
This very passage.
Yep.
And it'll be on the Patreon tomorrow. So if you're not a Patreon, please consider joining. But we got a lot of this good stuff. The whole point is Samuel rolls up going, "Hey, bro, what's up? What I hear cattle. I hear noise. Like, what the heck is this?" And then why is the king over here still alive? And Saul has an excuse. It's almost like Samuel, who's a spokesperson for God, is pissed because you didn't kill them all. You didn't kill every animal. Oh, I'm going to sacrifice those to Yahweh. I told you to kill them all. Whoa. How do you paint the narrative from hyperbole to, it loses all of its meaning. It means nothing at this point. So it goes so far to defend the crazy stuff we read that we wouldn't want to apply today. Even in war times today, the worst war times, you wouldn't, obviously there's laws and rules, if you will, to this whole thing. You shouldn't kill infants and civilians and things like that. So anyway, Dr. Josh, I think that video will go in depth. Going back up to Ben's comment, he says, okay. But an angel really did kill 185,000 of Sennacherib's men, right?
Obviously, Ben. That one's right.
That one's right. Okay. I thought it was. That makes a lot of sense,
And that's why we don't know about it, right? Because there was nobody left to write about it.
As Dr. Price says, oftentimes after these events, God sends angels down with vacuum cleaners and he cleans up the mess. I mean, he wants it completely. He does such a good job after killing them all. He vacuums up the evidence to a point where archaeologists, it's like he knew the archaeologists were going to come thousands of years in the future, check these sites and go, hey, nothing's here. Yeah. Or there's another hypothesis. Satan knew, so he wanted to clean it up. So most of the world was tricked when they tried to find the evidence.
That's the one that's actually true.
That's okay. I thought, I was wrestling between both, but that makes more sense to me.
And we confirmed that.
We have.
I got a direct revelation, so it's cool.
Dude, where's Doug from Pine Creek? Because he could literally communicate to Satan on hand, get his answer. It's amazing what you. Well,
Doug's is nothing, right? Mine's from the Flying Man. So.
Oh, Doug, did you hear that? I know you're paying attention. Thanks for the super chat, Ben. And we asked your question, Ben. You asked on Patreon as well. We recorded your question in person. Anytime Ben asks a question, I always remark about the insanity of the depth at which he likes to ask some of these questions. Of course, the last one was not sarcasm. That was literally true. But but seriously, Dr. Josh, what do we do with these types of things? You're pointing out we need to read them as literature, and we need to find a way to get most people to start opening their eyes and say, hey, this the same way they would view other ancient Near Eastern literature. Am I on the same path?
Let me tell you this. There is a conference that's coming up, and it's called the Better Conference, and it's being hosted by the Atheist Network Group. And if you guys haven't gone to the Atheist Network Group, and if one of the mods maybe could put the link to their YouTube channel in the side chat, you need to go subscribe. They have good shows almost every night. And then afterwards, they almost always go into Discord. They have a Discord, and I'll often show up in there while I'm rocking a baby late at night, and we just talk about the show. But the point is, Oz from the Atheist Network Group is putting on in Fort Wayne, Indiana on October 9th and 10th, a conference called Better. And the whole point of the conference, Seth Andrews is going to be there, Anthony Magnabosco, T-Jump's going to be debating, Dave Warnock, Cynthia McDonald. I think I'm going to be there. But
go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
But it's all about having those better conversations. So like I was assigned the topic of how do we use historical inaccuracies in the Old Testament to have better conversations with apologists, and just sort of like a sneak peek of what I'm going to talk about. And by the way, reservations, which is like sort of the tickets. We can't say tickets, but the reservations are on sale right now, and you can get it. You can go for as little as $25, but you want to get the big package, because you get the big package, you get to hang out with all of us. So anyway,
that is true. So look, can I plug this for a second here real quick? I just want to mention, because I don't want to take us off track of the discussion, but I do think it's important. This whole conference where all of you guys are going to be, if you can travel, find out the details, you can email me. You can find us on Facebook. You can do all that. You can email me, mythvisionpodcast@gmail.com, or Derek@mythvisionpodcast.com in the description of this video. I'll get you guys the link. Actually, I might need to go back and just add the link into the description where they can go to the website and actually purchase the reservation.
It's on Eventbrite. If you go to Eventbrite, they're on there. I remember that because I went and found it the other day. Okay. But yeah, you can go get them now.
Meet you guys in person. I might even be there with my recording gear. I got to talk to the wife. That's something I'm hoping I can do, to go interview you guys in person. But also, Oz has got a lot going on in life, and I feel like it'd be cool if everyone kind of came together in the community and wanted to show him some love for his situation with his mom and what's happened, and you know what I mean, just to show that,
guys, everybody watching
Christ. I mean, I'm just kidding.
If I could be so bold, I can't see how many people are watching, but if you are here and you haven't subscribed to the Atheist Network Group's YouTube channel, go over there and subscribe and come back. We'll still be here. We'll talk about something we'll talk about something for a minute. Look, go over there and do that. Help him out. I have a way to share if they don't know what it looks like. I'm going to get your super chat here in just a second, Endo. Let them see it, because, I'm a guy who has to see things to believe things. This is the channel right here. Okay. Tang. If you don't know this channel, please come get familiar, get acquainted with my friends over here. I mean, you can hear every video starts with Oz rapping. It is badass. Like, I have the Gilgamesh rap, and like, you already knew that my rapping was shit, but his rap, he's actually a rapper. Like, you get to hear him rapping in the beginning of and end of every show. It's awesome. It's funny because I often will catch those videos afterwards, like in the mornings when I drive to work. And, where most people would fast forward through the intro, I have to listen to him. Yeah. That's how it is, man.
You got to hear him rap, man, because you just don't have his skills. But you got some skills. You don't underplay. Endo, thank you for the super chat again, my friend. In your opinion, what are some huge Old Testament errors or contradictions? But please, no numerical ones, like the age Ahaziah?
Ahaziah,
Ahaziah became king. Thanks, Josh and Derek. Thank you for the super chat. And I wouldn't care for the number contradictions either. There are like discrepancies between counts and certain things, but give us like big boom. I mean, Joe Baden talks about some of these, like what mountain? Like, how do you get the wrong mountain? Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai? Which is it? But what are some?
So a couple that you can go to, I think, pretty clearly. I talk about these in the Did Moses Write the Pentateuch chapter of the book, trying to pick big ones. And again, as you say, these are, I'm hitting them kind of high. if you want to get down into those Pentateuchal contradictions, see a bunch of them, get Joel Baden's book, and you can see the secondary literature. But like some of the ones that you can see, ask yourself the question, read through Genesis 37 and ask yourself the question, how did Joseph get to Egypt? Right? Because if you remember the story, Joseph gets sold into slavery to Potiphar down in Egypt. But if you ask yourself the question, like really pay attention to Genesis 37 and say, how did he get there?
Yeah.
You're going to have a fun time, because you read through it and it says, okay, so let's see, his brothers throw him in a pit and then see Ishmaelite traders coming by. And so they go pull him up out of the pit, but then sell him to Midianite traders who sell him to the Ishmaelites. But then it says later that the Midianites sold him into Egypt. But then later it says the Ishmaelites sold him. How did he get down there? Right? And this is one of those passages where like people, I'm hesitant to use the phrase prove a contradiction, because I think in these cases, you can reconcile a lot of stuff. However outlandish it is, you can reconcile a lot of it. Like Bart Ehrman used to say, you can reconcile almost anything. Like with Judas, did he hang himself or did he fall headlong and burst asunder? Well, he went and he hung himself from the tree, and then he, as his body decayed, he like fell. He was hanging over a cliff, and that's how he fell. And I remember him asking the question to, I think it was Peter Williams. He said, "Do bodies routinely flip 180 degrees when they fall from a hanging position like that?" Well, no. Okay. Well, I mean, seems kind of weird.
Head first, again, she went from bloop, bloop, bloop.
Yeah, I mean, is that normally how that works? But again, you can sort of, people, believe me when I tell you, you probably know this, a Christian apologist who's dedicated and determined will harmonize these passages. It might be unbelievably outlandish. For example, in that Genesis 37, there's a way you can do it, sort of. You could say that the brothers sold Joseph to the Midianites, who then sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites, who took him down to Egypt and met up with the Midianites again. And the Ishmaelites sold Joseph back to the Midianites. And then the Midianites sold him to Potiphar. And you could do that, right? You can make it work like that. But is that in any way reasonable?
If you read the apologists' arguments in this, you're stuck. It's really there. It's all convoluted or ad hoc, and it just doesn't work. Yeah. I put Oz's link up there. My good friend Gary just interviewed me too on it was like a month and a half ago. He interviewed me on like my story, if you will, my life story about where I ended up, how I ended up where I'm at, and Calvinism. He feels ignored. Okay. Not really. He's just teasing. It's my buddy Gary, though. He just started this channel, Topic Discuss, and he talks about just about everything under the sun.
It's a cool channel.
I want to create a communion. Communion. I want us to have a communion.
Oh, yes, Domine.
Yeah. Community. Goodness.
Sorry.
Me and my words.
I was trying to help.
I know. You help me roll with the punches. You cover up my falls. And, you take away my sins. I appreciate you, Josh. Now, seriously, though, go subscribe to my friend Topic Discuss. Gary, we got to catch up sometime, brother, for sure. I'm just as busy as all get out. That's all. I hope that answered your question about contradictions. I mean, that's just one example of a passage where when you split them apart, as Joel Baden shows in his book, they make perfectly coherent sense. But when they're put together, it's like, what the?
Yeah, this isn't a question. You hit the nail on the head, right? This isn't a question of, the writers are big dummies and they contradicted themselves. That's not what anybody's doing.
Yeah.
Right. What they're saying is, look, we have different traditions, arguably different sources that are being brought together here. And one of them has the flood lasting 150 days consistently. And this other one has them lasting 40 days consistently. And if you try to make them go together, well then, it's really weird. You get this weird stuff. But if you just separate them out, it's like, okay, we got two coherent stories side by side that fit. So,
Absolutely. And he did a beautiful job with that. And he did it in another passage. You really should read his book because he talks about some real clear contradictions.
yes,
Like, who's the father-in-law of Moses?
that's right.
You can't even, like, does he go by multiple names? I mean,
Right.
where do you
Yeah.
draw the line and stop with the way we view the
Yes.
text? I think that's what MythVision's purpose has been this entire time since I started this show.
Yeah.
I started the show called The Water Boys. This wasn't even called MythVision.
Whoa, water boy.
That's right. High quality H2O.
That's high quality H2O.
Yeah, that's right. And I wanted people to, maybe look at some of the allegorical approaches because I was still trying to protect the Bible in a way, but come at it from a different angle. Like I wanted to go, well, it's all astrotheology and everyone just doesn't understand it but me and like 5 other guys on planet Earth. We all know the secret teachings of the esoterics and, all this stuff. But then I saw some problems and I started going, okay, hold on. Let me look at what experts say and then draw some conclusions and look into this. And it started taking me further away from that one position, seeing there is aspects of that, but it's not just that. So I think destroying that terrible way of viewing this text, divorcing it from ancient Near Eastern context of the Old Testament, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then applying it as if it's talking about today. It's talking about right now. No, the slaughter of the Amalekites represent the fallen stars in the southern hemisphere. And then, like you go into anything, it can mean anything anymore. And I guess it's better than saying, let's go kill other human beings in the name of God. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to downplay that, but
yeah,
I also think that it's just, let's keep our Bible and protect it from all the atrocities. Notice my Bible?
Yes, I noticed that.
Do you notice my Bible? Get the Bible. It's only $9.99 on Amazon right now on ebook.
But I mean, Vlad in the side chat has a perfect point here. He's talking about Sumerian stories. Like if you try to piece together a Mesopotamian religion, that's really, really difficult. And Elio Oppenheim argued, I think in the 80s, like you can't do it. And I think it's probably a little extreme, but the point is you can read through at different times, different periods. You can read through who's, which deity, whose father is this deity, and if whose son is that deity, and it changes, right? And it's complicated. And there are contradictions, and it's inconsistent. But because we don't worship Mesopotamian deities, like nobody sits around and thinks those dumb, Mesopotamian authors, right? Because that's not the point. That's not the point of the text. They don't see it. They're not looking at it that way. And so I think it's really important to recognize that it's when you come to the text with this presupposition, with you starting with the conclusion that this is the inspired word of God and it's inerrant in that particular way, you have to defend it, and you end up with something. Just to give one more sort of contradiction, when you have in the book of Daniel where it says Belshazzar is Nebuchadnezzar's son, well, then you get this. Well, wait a minute now. Like, okay, so sure. I mean, he's Nabonidus. Nabonidus is Belshazzar's father, but Nebuchadnezzar, the word father can mean grandfather, and so that's what it's doing. Is Belshazzar's grandfather. And then you say, well, wait, I mean, it's true that in Semitic it could mean that, but he's not his grandfather either, right? I mean, like, that. Do you have any evidence that they're related? Well, I mean, Neriglissar, who was another king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, well, he married one of Nebuchadnezzar's daughters, and so why couldn't Nabonidus have married one of Nebuchadnezzar's daughters? And it's like, okay, well, so you're going to go with. It's like crossing, what is it, the Indiana Jones movie and the Holy Grail, where he's crossing the path with Jehovah, taking the steps. I mean, it would be like stepping onto one of those letters that you're not sure is solid. Like you're planning out how you're going to do it. Is I'm going to step on that step, and then that step, and then that step. But if you step on the first one and it's not solid, you can't get to the second one, right? So you're having to assume, all right, well, I don't know, like in this case, that it means father. I mean, it means grandfather, but it's possible. Then if I assume that to be the case here, then I have to assume that he married, Nabonidus married this time. We don't have any evidence for that. We don't know who that would be. Like, it's just, all right, look, is there a better answer? I go into all that in the book, by the way, because there is a better answer, one that actually fits with, so you're saying there's a chance. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
I love that movie, actually. And
Yes.
I want to start using that scene whenever I'll come up with some stuff creative down the road. When I actually am not constantly interviewing scholars and doing like things free up, I'll come up with funny things that I think are hilarious, because that's exactly what I see happening. And Dr. Ehrman, when I recently interviewed him, said that if you want something to harmonize, you work hard enough at it and you can make it harmonize. Anything. It doesn't matter what it is. You can almost make it work somehow. And this is, I think, where cognitive dissonance like comes in, and it forces people to do these things to make these texts fit, because they assume with this first step, it's inerrant, it's infallible. So no matter what you do, bend it, twist it, make it work. Because you're not really bending it and twisting it. You're actually figuring out the truth of it when you connect these dots. And it's all
it's like you're Billy Madison, right? And you say, of course I peed my pants. Everybody peed their pants. It's the coolest.
Exactly.
You know, it's cool to pee your pants. Sorry, that's
no, you're good.
You've seen the movie. That makes sense.
I have. My favorite part is no yelling on the bus. You know what I mean? That's my favorite part of that whole movie.
Good, great, grand, wonderful.
Nicholas, thank you for the super chat. Is there any good academic work that analyzes why ancient historians, writers make up or change narratives? Also love the book. Thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate that.
Make up or change narratives. So I would say it's not my field. Ancient historians, like Greek and Roman historians, not really my field. But I would say I've got a couple of books on the shelf that, Derek, I could send you if you remind me. I could send you the bibliographic information on them that talk about like, can we trust the historians and what their rationalizations are? Actually, let me just go grab one. There's one that I'm thinking of.
Just go grab one right now. No yelling in the chat. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Josh is going to get that. Thanks for the super chat. Everybody, love you. Thank you so much. Really, though, this is fun. I always enjoy coming on. I traveled a lot over the past couple weeks, and I had to catch up with Dr. Josh, letting you guys know to go get his book. If you're into audiobooks like I am too, really, you could get it. It's a wonderful read, and put it on like 2 times speed if you can listen to stuff at a quick pace.
But you don't want to. Like, you want to enjoy Seth Andrews. Like, you can just don't even listen to the information. Just listen to his voice, right?
Well, look, if you have some door-knocking fundamentalist who's trying to force Jesus down your throat, you could, even if you don't like the book, throw the book at them.
Yes,
it's a heavy object. It's worth purchase just for that.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you,
it is pretty meaty.
Yeah. It's solid enough that it's technically a weapon.
Right.
And if at the least it's worth, is he about to throw those stones? It's showing you how to throw the stone at the people. So throw the book at the people. Get
there you
the book
go.
down in the description.
So this is the book that I was thinking of. Can you see that? Yes, you can. So Greek and Roman Historians by Michael Grant. And he goes into, it's not like a huge difficult read, but he goes into sort of the basics of who the major Greek and Roman historians are and their misinformation and mistakes and why they get made, what sources they use. And then, of course, he talks about the end, like, should we be using them? The other thing that you might want to get, and again, this isn't my field, but these are just resources that I found to be useful. So the Compendium of the Greek and Roman Historiography, that one's pretty sizable, but I found that one to be useful, just sort of in general. So anyway.
Yeah. Now, someone asked this the hardback. It is the hardback.
Yeah.
And it's a solid book. It brings eternal life as well. Volume 1 brings eternal life, but you're only justified with Volume 1. If you want to be sanctified, you have to get Volume 2, and glorification comes later. We'll go into the detail. Don't worry. I'm not going to let you guys down. You already know. I give out MythVision almost every Sunday,
And actually, you know what, Derek, that works, I think, pretty well because, justification, if you get the book, you have justification, right? You have it right now. But because I'm writing volume 2 now, that's very much like sanctification, right? Because it's a process. It's you bringing yourself. Listen, it's you bring it. It's you bringing yourself into alignment with who you are in Christ, right? So,
did I cross any lines just now? I don't know.
Untie my bow tie, stole my Honda.
You hold on. You weren't into the charismatic church. I thought you were conservative, right?
Yeah, I was, but that
get,
doesn't mean that you can't get filled with the Spirit. You know what I'm saying?
You know. Okay.
By the way, again, shameless plug for Oz's channel, but it's because it's this so good. He's got this show called The Ozone.
Oh,
and
great name too.
He has been going through let's hang out with my former pastors is what it is. And he comes from a very charismatic background. So Rod Parsley, Benny Hinn, some of these, if you know those names, and he's just doing entire shows where he's live reacting to some of their sermons, some of their healings. Hilarious, very informative.
I love watching like comical, responses to Benny Hinn's jacket slapping people in the face, and
that's fire. That's fire on you.
And they're like having Twitch seizures.
The best moment is when it had to be unscripted. Hey, those people. If you guys don't know Benny Hinn, he gets all worked up, and then he throws the Holy Spirit at people, essentially, right? And he knocks them over. So people will come up and they'll be, I can't hear in this ear, but I can't hear in this ear. And then he throws the Holy Spirit at them, and they fall back, and all of a sudden they can hear. So he's got these like assistants, they're like bodyguards, and they bring the people up, and then he throws the fire at them of the Holy Spirit, and they fall backwards.
I've seen
and the bodyguards or whatever, they kind of catch the person and lower them down to the ground gently. Well, here's Benny Hinn, and he's throwing the Holy Spirit at this one and this one, and he turns to his bodyguards and starts throwing it at them. Well, I mean, so this one goes flying back, and then this one goes flying back. Well, then he throws the third one. Well, they're up on this high stage, right? It's like an 8 or 10 foot drop down. And this guy just happens to be standing at the edge of the podium, at the edge of the platform with his back facing it. And so he turns and throws the Holy Spirit at him, and the guy goes, huh? And then inches forward a little bit and then falls backwards.
He knew what he was doing. Yeah. Or the Holy Spirit knew what he was doing.
Yeah, the Holy Spirit. And see, that's how you would spin that. Like the Holy Spirit protected that man. That's glory on him.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't want him to get hurt.
Yes.
Even though his angels could have catched him, like it's talking about, give your angels, keep him from falling off the pinnacle of the temple to Jesus. Anyway, Dr. Josh, is there anything in specific that you think, because you're going to go into multiple volumes, what is your favorite, like your specifically favorite discussion or topic that you talk about in this book? What I find unique about it is that you go into the whole history of ancient Near Eastern stuff that is not biblical. Some of these names and kings are mentioned in the Bible, but you're reading sources that are authentic from cuneiform tablets and whatnot. But what was your favorite part of this book?
I think writing about my experience working in archaeology.
Really?
That was a lot of fun because, if you want, I'll read the little opening section of the chapter. If you want me to, to give people a taste.
You're not Seth, so don't pretend to be. But
I'm not. That's true. I'm not Seth. It was hot. Well, it was always hot. Summer days in Syria were not known for their mild temperatures. It was almost time for the dig team to return to the village when one of the workers pulled his hands from the dirt pile he was sifting to reveal a small clay bull figurine. From the edge of the tell, the mound where we were excavating, I called out to the dig director, Glenn Schwartz, who made his way over from the center of the site. Glenn, look what we found. I shouted as he came close enough to catch sight of my amazing discovery. His response was perhaps less enthusiastic than I had anticipated. "Shut everything down," he said in a flat, sarcastic voice, his tongue firmly set in his cheek. "We found what we've been searching for."
What was that they found?
That little clay bowl figurine.
What
but
was your biggest experience, though, out of it that really grabbed you?
I mean, the reality that it's not like Indiana Jones, and you know that going out there, but I still anticipated that I was going to find this like huge group of beautiful Sumerian tablets or something, but no, pottery. You find lots and lots of pottery sherds. And it's incredibly meticulous the way that it works. You have to dig each day 6 2-meter by 2-meter by 20 centimeter deep squares of dirt. So we dug at Umamara by quantity. And so, other dig sites, other excavations will dig by time. So you hire this dig team to come out and they have to dig from 8 to 12 or something. So then your goal is to try to get them to move faster, right? Because they know they have to be there for 4 hours. Well, our dig teams, they knew they had to dig 6 of these squares and then they were done. So, I mean, you would see them just throwing dirt, man. They'd be throwing that dirt. And you'd have to go, wahid, like one, like slow down. But they were very efficient. But every square that you dug, they had to sift through it all by hand, find all the pottery sherds, find anything else that's in there, put them all in an individual Ziploc baggie that was specific to that particular square. It was very material. You had to label it a certain way. You had to record it in your notebook a particular way. It was pretty neat. But being able to write about that and have that sort of as my background for writing the archaeology chapter, because I'm not an archaeologist, right? I was an Assyriologist out there doing archaeology. But that experience was absolutely critical, I think, for me to understand how to read a field report, how to understand how archaeology works. It was really good. I enjoyed writing.
And I wonder if our recording about archaeology, I don't recall yet getting to whether or not we got it or not, because the 7 corruptible files that didn't make it. Right. I don't know if it was one of the last ones we did, and I think it might have been one of the ones we lost. So we'll have to re-record that in person. I want everybody in the chat to know, if you join the Patreon for MythVision, you can ask questions, and I'll ask Dr. Josh. I'm coming to his house next Friday. Someone wants to hear Kent Hovind's impersonation again before we leave, Dr. Josh.
Okay.
But before, I guess, can you make it relevant to this horrible book about these nasty atheists,
I suspect, Derek, that, if you think about the atheists that are going to read this book, well, probably they believe in evolution. Okay. And so maybe it's the right book for them. But of course, if you're interested in truth, okay, and you want to know what it is that God has said in his word, well, this is probably not the book for you. Because see here, these evolutionists, and that's what it all comes back to, right? There's 7 types of evolution. There's Big Bang evolution. There's cosmic evolution. There's evolution of my car. But see, the thing is that when water rains down on otters, then you have this Big Bang soup, and you know that dogs never produce non-dogs. And any farmer and 7-year-old will tell you that, okay? So we need to make sure that you see this picture. It's my wife, okay? I'm here to help.
Oh, my gosh. Well, Freddie Ray, your wish has come true, my friend. Yes. Dr. Joshua Bowen, any final words to anybody out there? The whole conference coming up. I mean, we said a lot of things, and I know it's a lot to say, hey, go check this out, go check that out. I need to get that link and put it down in the description as soon as we get off here. Message me the link for them if they want to. They don't have to necessarily show up in person. I think it will be recorded, and there should be a way to view it in a different way. If not,
if you can't make it, I think it's $29.99, and you can view the whole conference. Don't quote me on that, but Derek's absolutely right. Things have been rough for Oz right now. And so if you didn't earlier, right after the stream, when it ends, hop over there, subscribe. I'm going to ask him. I'm going to ask Oz later on, hey, did you guys have a bump in subscription and in subscribers? And if he says no, I'm going to be very, very disappointed.
We don't want the wrath of Josh.
No, you don't. You
Do you transform into the image of the thing that's behind you? Because that's a pretty beastie looking snake with legs.
This is the ferocious snake, right? The furious snake. And yeah, you don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that
on your face. Like, I'm not, dude, please go do it. Because when I see him next Friday, I'm not sure if I'm making it out of his house. You know what I'm saying? No, but seriously, I love you, man. I really do.
I love your audience. Yeah, and
they love you.
Well, I've seen several people say they have the book or they just bought it. Thank you all very much.
It does help. You're right now 4th on the Atheist. So what are the ranks right now? So we could try and bump those numbers up.
Yeah. We were number 1 in the Kindle version for about a month, a little over a month, maybe 6 weeks. It's since dropped to, I think, 4th in atheism, 3rd in Hebrew Bible, 7th. I can't remember. The audiobook is number 1 bestseller, which is great, which is unsurprising again, because it's Seth's voice. That's why people are buying it, because Seth is reading it, which I'm okay with. But hey, $9.99. Go grab a Kindle version if you don't have it. Help us out. Let's get it back up to number 1. That would be awesome. Because seriously, it really does help with how often Amazon, like how hard they push it. If it's a number 1 bestseller, they'll push it hard. So
tell me if you can hear it normal. Like, I put the audio part on.
Oh, okay.
Or something similar. The atheist says, your God is good. He is the ground and basis for morality. Then how do you explain 1 Samuel 15:3? Now go and strike Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have.
Okay, and if you're like me and you have 1,800 other books you have to read, I know Dr. Josh totally says no to this advice, but you can always speed it up to 1.5 or 2 times speed, and it can get through it, and you're hearing it, and it's so much information. There's a lot I had not known till I read this book, and I'm not even done reading it. So I'm in your archaeology chapter right now, and there's just a lot of good, juicy stuff there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Give me that link. I'll put it in the description. I love you guys and gals. Visual real quick. That's the wrong one. Here's Digital Hammurabi. Go check out his YouTube channel. Make sure you guys do that. I recorded this 7-8 months ago right here, where I'm actually going to your channel. And then never forget, ladies and gentlemen, we are MythVision.